All right, it's Jeff again here at 1545 Northwest 131st Avenue here in Portland. We're at the main lateral connection on Northwest 131st. Just went and located that. I'm just making a second video here. My first one, my foot counter decided not to work. And where we are in currently right now is 4-inch, appears to be transite concrete. So some of the joints here towards the end of the line, they're starting to open. This is usually the spot, like a lot of concrete materials. The joints there are where you will usually start getting your first bit of wear. Those outside joints there are starting to open. You've got an inside joint there that's got something protruding out from it, which may very well be dirt. I think it's pretty high likelihood that that's what it is, and that's not necessarily a crazy thing to see on a line this age. That joint there also is starting to separate and pull apart. As it sits right now, from a flow functionality standpoint, that's not affecting anything. And it's a pretty short little section of transite. I'm going to go locate where that starts there. Anyway, the joints as they sit right now, not affecting functionality. It's just one of those things to understand that, especially with the advent of stuff like trenchless epoxy liners nowadays, where you can fix this without having to dig, it behooves you to keep an eye on these things and rescope periodically. What you will generally start seeing, if the joints do open up to a point where they allow for a fair amount of dirt to start coming through, hydro erosion can take place. It can cause the line to start settling. So as it sits right now, flow is very good through here. Line is clean. But I would rescope periodically to keep an eye on things, and I would probably plan to do something like, if you want to take advantage of a trenchless repair system, you want to rescope about every 1 to 2 years to monitor the line and watch for any signs of settling. That way you can catch it early on, and usually you can save a lot of money going through that repair process. Exactly. All right.
That's relatively good news.
Now, we don't get a great view of it just because of the kind of S-turn style that we've got in here. We get a better view of the left side of the pipe. That right side over there looks like it has pulled apart a little bit more than the inside part of the turn. And there is kind of a little bit of a moisturing around it, although it is not a major one. You've got something coming to the joint right there. That may, most likely what that actually is there. I think there's a fairly low likelihood that's roots. That's probably some kind of debris that went down line. It's those outside turns there where you can see that holes are developing at them. It's just like a riverbank where the water wants to orient to is always going to wear out that part of the sewer line more significantly and quicker. That last joint there, you do have fern cones around these joints. There's a rubber seal around them. You can actually see it exposed at most of these joints. So, even though the concrete there is starting to open, it doesn't necessarily mean that the joint is open to the ground, although I would be very surprised if it wasn't at this point in time. You've got a pretty good separation / hole starting there. And that stuff that's sticking out from the joint there on that left side of the pipe there is most likely dirt coming to the joint, as most of your water shooting down the pipe here is going to stick to the outside part of the turn, where it washes that stuff away. On the inside part of the turn, that doesn't typically happen. So, anyway, because of the advent of epoxy liner systems and especially the cost savings they can provide, being that the joints are in the condition they are, this is one where I would recommend a liner be shot through here. I think as far as trenching goes, to me, that is overkill as it sits right now. There would be no reason to go ripping the road open to fix something like that. As it sits, that's not affecting functionality right now. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think that's one that it may cost a little bit more than your average liner just because you've got a couple turns in there. And as for the cast iron here, cast iron is clean, showing some level of wear and tear in the flow line. And I'm not going to put, I for some reason cannot get a good locate out in the street. I'm able to get on top of that spot there just after the transition, but my depths are jumping all over the place. I'm getting between 7 and below 15 feet, so it's not one I want to go put paint down for. But when I hit the main there and turn around and look back at the house, the line is, you know, I'm basically looking up the driveway. The cast iron right now, still very much doing its job. It's intact, it's clean. Whoever's been living here has done a great job at keeping the line clean. So, as it sits, there's no reason to go messing with the cast iron right now, not unless you want to just go the full meal deal. That joint right there, partially pulled apart. That joint likely got put together that way. The joint all just shows no signs of being open to the ground. There's no moisture rings, no dirt coming through it. That's just a joint that's slightly wonky, but still closed off, not affecting functionality. And you're about 40 feet here, or 39 feet out to the main. From a flow standpoint, line is conveying sewage from A to B here just fine. Very clean line, good flow. It's those joints there in the transite I would recommend updating. If not updated now, I would plan to do so probably within the next, 3 to 5 years. I would rescope periodically to keep an eye on things. If you're trying to push it down the road a little bit, you're going to want to rescope yearly to watch for any settling issues. That way you don't let the line, you don't want to let it get too far gone to the point where enough settling takes place that you can't do an epoxy liner on it and you're stuck doing a dig. And if you do any repairs on the line, I would recommend a rescope afterwards to check to make sure that everything, whether you dug it or did a epoxy liner. You want to do any digging after the trench is closed to watch for any settling problems that could occur. If you did a liner on it, you want to make sure everything's cured up properly and there's no epoxy left over in the line. Just from a purely flow standpoint, line's functioning great in that regard. That end section of transite concrete there does appear you've got a few joints there that are exposed to the ground.